Good morning. If you're watching this video, you're probably wanting some help with Excel's basic functions. So the first key is to get used to working with the variables that Excel will have in each of its functions. Okay, so I have a list here to start off with. PV. This is often called P if you're doing formulas by hand, and it's the amount that you start with. Then FV. Often called A for accumulated amount if you're doing formulas by hand. In Excel, it's called the future value, and it's the amount that you will end with. Rate is often called APR or even just R when you're doing formulas by hand. Excel calls it rate. It's your amount of interest divided by N. So a little side note down here, N is the number of times that you compound in a year or the number of payments you make in a year. In basic classes and basic Excel functions, we just let these be the same. So you would have to compound the same number of payments you make in a year. So if you're making monthly payments, you're compounding monthly. Okay? And Y is the length of time that you are investing in your scenario or paying off your loan. So back up here, rate is going to be your APR divided by N. Then N per. This is often called capital N if you're doing things by hand, and it's really just little n times Y. So how often are you compounding or making payments times how long are you doing it for. And then PMT is your payment amount. Okay, so now that you know those, the key to using Excel is to pick the formula that is named for what you want to find. So first scenario down here, we're going to use compound interest, and it says you want to start saving. You want to start a savings account with $1,000. You can get an APR of 5% with monthly compounding. If you don't touch it for 5 years, how much will you have at the end of the 5 years? I like to always just fill in my variables first, because then you can see which one you need to solve for. So to start with PV, how much am I starting this account with? Well, I'm starting it with $1,000, and Excel likes to think of money in, money out. So if you're taking $1,000 out of your pocket and paying into your account, it's leaving you, so it's negative. It's a negative $1,000 that you're paying into your savings account. FV is what we want to find, our future value in 5 years, so leave it blank. Your rate is 5%, so 0.05 divided by how often you're going to do this, which we said monthly. Okay, so divide by 12. And per then is going to be 12 times 5 years. And then payment is 0 or blank because we're not making a payment. We're just going to put the $1,000 in and let it sit. So I'm going to come back up here to this FV. This is what I want to find. So Excel is really nice. You just go to your functions over here by clicking on that down arrow by AutoSum. Click More Functions. It's under Financial, and then it's alphabetical, so scroll down to the F's and find FV. Say OK. Pops up this box. In the rate, we're just going to put in 0.05 divided by 12. You can also click on the cells, but I'm going to type them for you. N per is 12 times 5, and the payment is 0. You can just leave it blank. And then PV was that negative $1,000. Your type you can leave blank. It just refers to as the money being compounded at the beginning or the end of the period. You can just use the default and leave it blank and say OK. All right, so it tells us at the end of 5 years you'll have $1,283.36. Super easy. Okay, so now let's add a payment to that. So you want to save up for a car. You have $3,000 already in your savings account. You're going to start adding $200 each month for the next 3 years. Your APR is 3%. How much will you have at the end of the 3 years? Let me scroll this up so you see a little more. Okay, so PV, you're going to put in that negative $3,000. It's leaving your pocket, so that's why Excel sees it as negative. FV is what we want to find, so leave it blank. Your rate is 3%, so 0.03 divided by 12, because we're making a monthly payment. And then N per is 12 times 3 years. And then this time we do have a payment. It's going to be negative $200 because it's leaving our pocket and going into our savings account. We're paying that savings account. So go find your functions now. We still want to find FV, so we're still going to use the same formula. And then fill it in. It's going to be 0.03 divided by 12. 12 times 3. Your payment is negative $200. And PV is negative $3,000. Say OK. And it will tell you that your future value after 3 years would be $10,806.27. Okay, not too bad. Okay, so reverse annuity. This just means going backwards. All right, so you want to have $15,000 for a down payment on a house in 10 years. You can afford to deposit $300 each quarter. if you invest money in an annuity for those 10 years and you can get an APR of 6% compounded quarterly, we have to match for our scenario, how much do you need to put in now? Okay, so fill it in again. This time, PV, we don't have one. We're just going to start with 0. Only making payments. So FV is what we want to have. We want to have $15,000. Okay. And I should have just left that one blank. It's what you want to find. Okay, rate is 6%, so 0.06 divided by 4, because we're compounding quarterly, so 4 times in a year. And then NPER is going to be 4 times how long you're doing it for, which we said 10 years. And then this time we are making a payment. We can afford $300 each quarter. So I'm going to say negative 300 because it's leaving my pocket and going into my savings account. Okay, so PV is the one I want to find. So I come back up here. This time I'm going to go find PV. Pick the formula that's named for what you want to find. Super simple. Okay, so come down here, find PV. Okay. All right, fill it in really quick. It's going to be 0.06 divided by 4. NPER is 4 times 10. Payment is negative 300. FV is 15,000. It's positive because it's going to come back to you. Notice it gives you your answer right here, but you can say OK, and it will put it into your cell for you. Okay, so $705.82 is what you need to put into your account now. Make $300 payments every quarter, and at the end of 10 years, you'll have your $15,000. Okay, moving on to scenario 4. This is where you want to actually find your payment. How much is my payment going to need to be? All right, still saving money. You have $1,200 to invest, and you can make monthly payments of no more than $300 each month. If your APR is 5.2% and you want to have $7,000 4 years from now, how much would your monthly payment need to be, and can you afford it? Okay, kind of 2 parts there. So let's start with the first part. Scroll up here a little bit. Okay, so you have $1,200 to invest. That's going to go into your account right now. So negative 1,200, that's your PV you're starting your account with. FV, it says you want to have 7,000. That's going to come back to you positive. So put in positive 7,000. Your rate is 0.052 divided by 12, because we're doing this monthly. So that means NPER is 12 times 4 years. And it's PMT that's blank. So I'm going to go find the formula called PMT. Come up here to your functions. Go all the way down to P. Find PMT. Say OK. We're going to enter in our variables. So 0.052 divided by 12. NPER is going to be 12 times 4. PV is going to be negative 1,200. FV is going to be positive 7,000. Say OK. It gave me a negative. Well, that's because Excel thinks of it as money leaving your pocket, $103.76 out of your pocket being paid into your account each month. Okay, so that's how it comes negative. All right, moving on to scenario 5. This is a loan payment. So we've been talking about saving money. Now we're going to be paying off a loan. How much is my payment needing to be? Okay, so I'm going to scroll this up. All right, so loan payment, scenario 5. You need to get a loan for $25,000 for a new car. Your APR is 5.8% compounded monthly. You would like to pay it off in 6 years, but you have no money to put down. What is your monthly payment? Okay, let's fill it in. So PV, they are going to start this scenario off by giving you $25,000. So it's positive and it's your PV. Okay, at the end of this scenario, we want it to be 0. So FV is 0. Your rate is 0.058 divided by 12, because we're doing it monthly. NPER is going to be 12 times 6 years. And then our payment is going to be what we're trying to find. Okay, so that's why it's blank. So you go up and you can still use the same formula. That's what's super nice about Excel. Now, if you're doing this by hand, there's actually a separate formula for when you're finding a payment for saving money and when you're finding a payment for paying off a loan. But in Excel, you can use PMT for both. So scroll down, find PMT again. The negative is what tells Excel which scenario you're doing. So that's why you have to be super careful with those negatives. Okay, so your rate is going to be 0.058 divided by 12. And PER is going to be 12 times 6. PV is a positive 25,000. FB is 0. And so it tells you you would pay that off by making a $411.97 payment every month for the next 6 years. Okay. All right, last scenario is NPER. This one you don't use very often, but this is when you want to find the time to pay something off or to save something. So in this case, it says you need to know how long it will take you to pay off a loan of $13,000 if your rate is 4.5% compounded monthly. So let's fill that in really quick. Starting with PV. Okay, so they're going to give you $13,000, so it's positive. You want it to be 0 when you're done. Your rate is 0.045 divided by 12 because we're doing it monthly. So NPER is going to be 12 times, we don't know. So I'm going to just leave it blank for a minute. And then your payment is, oh, I forgot to put one in there. Let's say we're making a $400 payment. So since we're making it, it's negative. Okay. All right. So I'm going to pull open NPER. That's actually the name of the function. So go down to NPER. It's what I want to find. So I'm going to go find NPER. Okay, pull it up. Rate is going to be 0.045 divided by 12. Your payment's going to be negative 400. PV is going to be positive 13,000. FB is going to be 0. So I say OK. Okay, now look at this amount right here. It says, I put it in the wrong box, but it says NPER is 34.7. What does that mean? What it means is you're going to make 34.7 payments in your period of time. Because remember, the NPER is N times Y. So if you want to know how many years this is going to take to pay off, you just need to divide that by your N, which in this case was 12, because we were doing it monthly. So just do a little formula down here. If we say, okay, take that amount and divide it by 12, I will find that it's going to take me 2.89 years to pay this off by making $400 payments. Okay, so that's how NPER works. NPER will always give you your total number of payments you're going to make. So you have to divide it by whatever your N is. If you're making quarterly payments, you would divide by 4. If you're making daily payments, you would divide by 365. If you're making monthly, which is most common, you divide by 12, and it will tell you the number of years to pay it off. So I hope that helps. All right, go practice.